So broadly, these memory recall questions can be called um, closed-ended questions. Closed-ended questions means those which have only one or limited set of answers. For example, what are the types of elements in the periodic table? So there are metals and non-metals and gases, or solids or liquids. That those are the only answers. Versus open-ended questions are those where the student can give any answer. So they are also called divergent questions or divergent subjects. Yes, there are certainly some questions or certain subjects which have only one answer. Like when you have a scientific experiment, you expect only a certain type of result, or when you solve a mathematical equation, there's only one answer to it. There are many other courses or subjects where they are quite interpretative or subjective. But even in these so-called convergent or uh, courses where there are only few right answers, we can and we must develop the open-ended thinking that is necessary. For example, uh, I'll just tell you what is the time between sunset and sunrise called. So it is night, of course. I mean, I'm just giving a small example. uh, when was Shakespeare born? So this is basically a closed-ended question, memory recall. Versus if you say that if Shakespeare was born 100 years later, what do you think he would have written? So that is basically a question which, so students might um, understand Shakespeare's character and the times in which he lived, and that informed or that affect influenced his writing. And maybe if he was 100 years later, I'm definitely not saying that this is a question um, at the school level or at a very lower class level. I'm just giving you an example of analysis, evaluation, creative thinking. All these will happen in the second question, because they have to they definitely must know the knowledge and comprehension of Shakespeare's work. They must also know the environment in which he lived and why he wrote those things, and then they must understand, then they must kind of explore or extend their imagination and say, okay, if it was 100 years later, then what would he have done? So this is what is called higher order thinking. So asking for meaning, understanding in their own words, asking how questions, that is, how can you make this work? Suppose there is some instrument or something that is not working, some method which is not working. How can you make it work? So here one thing we must understand is, when we typically ask students questions in class, especially when we are in the physical class, usually there is a chorus answering. This chorus we have encouraged right from the nursery class, from letters, alphabets to numbers and nursery rhymes. Everything is recited in chorus. This chorus is one of the most uh, use, useless things as they grow up, because in a chorus actually children do not have any individual responsibility, any accountability for their answer. Many times they may not even be saying anything. The teacher doesn't know who is speaking and who is not speaking. And as a teacher in the higher education, I have noticed that even in college, students hesitate to talk individually. They will say some answer as a chorus, but the moment you say, what did you say? What was it that I couldn't hear? Nobody wants to talk about it. Somehow there is a lot of fear in talking individually. This must be discouraged. So when you ask a question, do not expect immediate answers. Make it a protocol in your class that First, everybody has to think and write the answer. The other disadvantage of an immediate answer is, out of the 40 students, suddenly one or two people have given the right answer. Let us say you asked some question and they knew and they answered. The remaining 38 have not even listened to the question, not even thought about it. They know, okay, already the teacher asked something and somebody answered, finished, their job is done. So discourage again such kind of reflex answers. Whenever you ask a question, ask them to first think, write down the answer, then you pick up somebody from the student to read out the answer. Now again, for the same question, if you want all the students to engage with the question, try to ask now another student, do you think that was correct? Do you agree with it? Or can you make an extension? Maybe something is missing in that first answer. Can you extend it? Or do you think it will work in that other situation? So try to engage students in a discussion around the same question. Make sure more and more students are able to participate in the discussion. So these kinds of activities when you do in class, these questions when you ask in class, the class starts developing certain thinking skills. The other thing is, when you ask these questions, definitely as a teacher I know that there are different reasons for asking questions. Sometimes we ask questions because students are not alert, they're feeling sleepy, or somebody is making noise, so just to bring everybody's attention to the class you ask a question. Or you may ask a question spontaneously as you are teaching, you yourself get some question and you say, okay, yes, why did that happen, or what do you think will happen next, or something like that. There is certainly a lot of space for such spontaneity, but questions must always be planned, because otherwise what happens is, you've got a 45-minute or a 40-minute class and you wanted to do certain thing, you had a lesson plan. Now as you go and ask some question and some discussion takes place, 10 minutes or 15 minutes is gone, and suddenly you are in a rush to do whatever you had planned, or you feel disappointed that your class didn't go well, you didn't do whatever you wanted to do. So always factor question time in your lesson plan. Plan the questions. Do not expect that you will suddenly have this flash of wisdom to ask the right question. You may have, I am not denying that, but please plan your questions, plan how you are going to take it to all the students, do that. So asking how questions, analysis questions, how do you make this work, or breaking down, instead of giving them a procedure and asking them to memorize it, ask them, why do you think these steps are in this order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? What happens if I remove the step 3? Or what happens if I put step 6 in place of 3, I swap the 2 steps? Will it work the same way? These are analytical questions. Why questions? Why do you think this particular revolution happened in history at that time? Why do you think this particular invention was made? So these kind of questions will promote. I'm just trying to look at my notes. Why not? Why not is another question. Why don't we use this? Why don't we use that method in this particular situation? These are again evaluative questions. What if? One of a very nice book I read was something called Unfairy Tales by one Karthik. What he did is, he took the familiar fairy tales like Cinderella and Little Red Riding Hood and all those stories that we have read, this Beanstalk, all those Rapunzel, all these stories he took, and he re-narrated those stories from the point of view of another character in that story. For example, in Cinderella, he wrote the story from the mouse's point of view, the mouse which became a horse on that night when she went by chariot. So how he comes back and tells, I was a horse last night and this happened and nobody believes him. So there are many ways of looking. These are all the skills which give creativity, the practices and the exercises which give creativity and higher order thinking in many situations. Remember that. Please don't think that I am giving them this higher order thinking skill in English or in chemistry or social science or environment. Where will he use? These are generic skills. Remember, today, all the more, it was always there. Many times the syllabuses and the courses that we study in our schools and colleges really don't have any direct application, right? We assume that all this education is very fundamental, and based upon this, when they get into a job or when they are living their life, they will be able to assimilate new information, new knowledge because of the skills we are giving them. Don't think that the textbook knowledge that we are giving them in whichever course is directly going to be used somewhere. Not necessarily. Unless somebody is very super specialized and working in that same course, in that same field where he did his graduation or post graduation or PhD or something. Many times that doesn't happen. We all rely on our common sense and the ability to learn new things. So remember, this thinking is a generic kind of a thinking. It is something called transferable skill. Transferable skills are, if I learn analytical thinking or if I learn a certain kind of thinking, then I can transfer this thinking to another domain. Always remember, whenever we teach, say, language, when we are teaching language, we are talking about the grammar, the speaking, the synonyms, the punctuations, the powerful words, maybe creative writing, maybe poetry, excellent essays by famous people, all these kind of things, fiction, non-fiction. When we are teaching science, what is the student learning in science? Science, the student is learning a way of thinking. How do you inquire? How do you conduct an experiment? Why do you expect the same result whenever this experiment is conducted? How do you interpret the results? Okay, so if tomorrow I have a new problem, a new situation, if I want to have a scientific temper, if I want to have a scientific thinking, what is it that I must do? Similarly, when I am teaching history, I am teaching about the social structure, about the various challenges of those times and how people reacted and why things happened, why those events happened, how did they impact everybody, so that the student is able to learn how this contemporary life that we are living is also very similar as history. So every subject has a way of thinking that we are trying to develop, and this is what is transferable. So humanities, sciences, experimental subjects, abstract subjects, where you are only thinking, you are not really having anything tangible to feel, like philosophy. So these are the transferable skills that we can give to the students: higher order thinking and interpreting equations, interpreting meaning of something, paraphrasing or talking from some other point of view. And these are questions that you must ask in class. Allot time, take it slow, don't allow chorus or spontaneous or reflexive answering. Make it a protocol in class to think first. And if you do these kind of activities in class, then slowly the students will learn to think on their own. At that time you can ask higher order thinking questions in the exams too. At some other time I'll talk about how to prepare questions for these kind of exams.